MSV Focus Hex Ultra in the 1.25mm, which is a 16L gauge. How does it play? Alright, so I'm just coming off the back of Head Lynx Tour in the orange, the 17 gauge 1.25mm, compared to the champagne version. Less control and feel, a little bit more power. I've really opted still for the Head Lynx Tour Champagne. Fantastic feel, does give power, but only if you swing hard. Brilliant feel in it. So now what I'm going to move on to is the MSV Focus Hex Ultra. I have tried the MSV Focus Hex Soft and I found that it lacked ball pocketing, it lacked connection to the ball, which actually then, when I tried the Head Lynx Tour in the Champagne, that's one of the big things this gave to me. The connection to the ball is fantastic, and I liked the fact that it still responded there with power, but only with what you put in. So somebody did recommend the MSV Focus Hex Ultra. I have done a bit of Googling and ChatGPTing, and supposedly this is supposed to have really good ball pocketing. On the front they write, it is explosive and snappy. Like the Head Lynx Tour, it is a 6-sided poly string, and it says ideal for players looking for an explosive and snappy co-poly string with a maximum of spin potential and tension stability. So they don't really talk about, feel and touch and ball pocketing and so on and so forth. But that's actually now for me something I really prioritize. Why do I prioritize that? Simply because I am starting to now play a level of tennis where, if I may say so, I feel I'm getting better and I'm getting to play with players who are better. And they're hitting, frankly, a harder, more sort of penetrating ball, and I need real control. I do still need power, but I'm perfectly capable of generating that myself. So I don't want a low powered sort of dead string, but I want a sort of medium powered string that will prioritize giving me the control, so that when I'm pushed out wide and I have to place the ball back cross court and deep into the corner, and I've got to be hitting sort of, within half a meter of the line, I can hit that spot. And frankly, that's what the Head Lynx Tour in the Champagne's given me. That said, it feels like there are millions of strings out there. It'd be interesting to sort of do a bit of a calculation to say, of all the different types of strings and all the combinations and all the hybrids and all the so on and so forth, how many variations are there? I mean, a lot, right? But I'm still looking. There you go, there's the statement. So this is what you would call cheap as chips. £57.50 for a reel. That's £3.59 to string a racket. I mean, that to me is both good, but it also raises questions, because how good is the string if it's £3.59 for you to string a racket? I mean, that's bordering on sort of budget strings. And, it's not to say you can't get a good budget string, but, is this meant for people who just really prioritize getting a cheap string? We'll find that out. I did find with the MSV Focus Hex Soft, kind of did feel like a piece of plastic, It just didn't have connection. I seem to remember it did have relatively good spin. Can't remember on the launch angle. Yeah, I must admit I'm a little bit skeptical of these, just for that reason, that I didn't have a great experience with the Soft. It's still a good string, but just wasn't for me. But also the fact it is cheap. So, now the other thing is, I looked on the Tennis Warehouse University and they haven't analysed this string. So I can't really tell much about it. I did again do a bit of ChatGPTing, and comparing it to the Head Lynx Tour, it's supposed to have less power be a bit softer and have more spin. Now, given that I actually want a little bit more power, if I could have anything, it would be a little bit more power out of the head links tour and the Champagne, but still retain the control. You know, I don't know there's such a string, and I think people will cry out and say, you need to hybrid, you need to hybrid. So, bottom line is, I'm expecting, well, so here's the thing. If this gives massive, let's say this gives better feel and better ball pocketing, in theory, the simplest way to put a bit more power into this would be to string it lower. You know, to string it maybe a 46, you know, whereas I've strung the head links tour Champagne at 50. And that's kind of the balance you get, right? That if I can get a better feel string that gives better control, but also allows me to put more topspin on, I can string lower. So I could go sort of 44, 46 potentially, which should then allow me to get that, get a bit of power back into it. And if they're really claiming, and I have read that these are great for tension maintenance, well, you shouldn't have to worry so much about stringing that low. So here's a good one, isn't it? Do I stick to my reference tension of 50 pounds? I say I do, and here's why. Because if you start testing strings and stringing them at different tensions, then it's not a fair assessment, right? I can't go in and say, I arbitrarily sort of made a simple calculation in my head to string this lower because of X, Y, or Z factors. If I string them both at 50, and I say at both at 50, which gives the best ball pocketing and control, maybe it's this one, so much so that I feel I could then string it lower, then you can go back around and do that again. Sounds like I'm doing a sort of year 7 science experiment, getting out my Bunsen burner in a minute with my hypothesis and conclusion. I am going to stick to 50. I've got to admit, I'm not optimistic, just because the MSV Focus Hex Soft, it just felt like a piece of plastic. But then, this is a different string. So, sometimes I guess all I can say in its favor is sometimes when you are a little bit pessimistic about something, that may be when it turns out to be something pretty good. So look, bottom line, let's get this strung up. Let's see, is it explosive? Is it snappy? Does it have great ball pocketing? What is the power like? Does it allow me to swing harder? Let's see.
Well done. Well done.
So the MSV Focus Hex Ultra in the 1.25 millimeters. I actually threw the packet away and I thought I was doing 1.20 millimeters. It is the 1.25. Now, I posted a short in which I said I'd hit some serves with it and I'd played the first 5 games of a match with it, and I found it to be very great spin, yes, explosive, so like it said, explosive and snappy, but I just felt absolutely zero feel on it at all. But you know what, I've still got to go out and actually do some hitting to see what I felt about it as well, for an extended period. So I was out with my daughter tonight, and first off, I tell you, and I've been very guilty of this, not putting structure in place, because we've been coaching our children simply because we don't have the money to pay for the number of hours that they want to do to become good tennis players. And so we've had to kind of bootstrap it, we've had to make it up. But there comes a point, I mean, she's 11 going on 12, and she's kind of like seriously into it now. And we're like, we can't just keep turning up at the courts and going, well, what should we do today? And then make it up as we go along. It hasn't been quite that sort of hacked, but today was the first day I went along, and I actually, just an aside, and I'm going to do a post about this. I bought some books with little flyers, and this is called their tennis training log. I went on to ChatGPT and just said, because I'm just lost a little bit. I just went on and said, described our situation. We're a family with 3 kids. The first one definitely wants to be a tennis player. She wants to go on at 16 and try and go overseas and do qualifying for ITFs, and then either do Division 1 US college or see where she goes. I mean, she's pretty going for it, right? And then just saying, look, how do we put some structure? And there's, one of the things there are lots of points, and I'm going to do a post, and this is a bit of an aside, is one thing is, have a plan for each session. Don't just rock up to the courts with your ball machine and your basket of balls and just go, right, let's spend 2 hours trying to do the forehand technique and nothing else. So one thing we're doing tonight, and we decided to develop, is, classic, you look at a lot of people drilling, and I know I'm digressing a bit here, you look at a lot of people when they do drilling, what do? They hit up and down the court, and they stand on the tee, the other person stands on the tee, and they hit to each other. It's not that you never do that in tennis, but let's face it, you pretty much don't, You really don't want to be hitting it to your opponent standing in the middle of the court. You want to be going cross court or down the line half court, or, making the short angles and so on. So with the drills we were doing there, it was simply saying, let's drill cross court, and within reason, every ball must be aimed beyond the service line. So we're looking at consistency and depth. The last rally there, I think I counted, we got up to 27 shots. She dropped a few short, but I thought, that's fine. She's really trying to get the ball deep. And I tell you what, it's just really pleasing to be able to get to a point where you can do that, hit with your child and feel like, I'm not hitting 100%, but I'm hitting a pretty decent ball to her, and she's hitting a decent ball to me. And funnily enough, I've got her racket strung up in a way that she should be able to trade pretty well. It's really down to her footwork and preparation. Anyway, that's a bit of a digression. The world of being a tennis parent. Let's get back to the MSV Focus Hex Ultra. Funnily enough, this evening I was hitting and I thought, this isn't as bad as I was expecting it to be, considering what I've experienced so far. And I was hitting and going, I didn't really feel a massive connection on my backhand in terms of feel and ball pocketing, but I thought this doesn't feel awful. But then I remembered, and I don't think I've got them with me, we're playing with some 2-day-old Head Tour XTs, which have gone a bit soft, fluffy, and you got a lot of time on the ball, even if the ball's coming fast. And I suddenly went, do you know what? The reason why I probably feel a little bit more feel and a little bit of softness is because we're using soft tennis balls. So honestly, I'm gonna mix up my review here, because I start to sort of, the big question I'm asking myself is, who would like this string and why? Because I don't. Let's start on positives though. What's good about it? It definitely has good spin. I don't have it in the video there, but I hit some kick serves, I think a day or two ago, and this kicks like crazy. It's really, really cool. First serve, you can get some really good power. On the forehands there, I felt like when I had time, I could really hit through the ball really, really nicely and get some very nice power that was controllable. It wasn't sort of, you know, overly lively. So that was good. What else is good? The price point. You know, that price, what is it, £57 a reel, is just so cheap. And for a lot of people, they may be going out and saying, I need to get a cheap string. I can't afford to buy strings because it's a consumable item, right? Really, if you're playing a lot, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, really shouldn't be leaving a poly in for 6 months, if unless you're playing, you know, 1 hour every 2 weeks. So that certainly is a good thing in one respect. So what didn't I like about it? Well, this is interesting because tonight I was hitting and I was going, this doesn't feel terrible. Now, it's a couple of things. When we were hitting there, we were hitting with those couple of day old head Tour XTs, which had gone soft. We also had a basket of balls with us, which were the training balls, the Wilson Trinities, and we got some Vermont training balls. My daughter was hitting 2 baskets of serves. We did another drill there that rather than just hitting serves, I bought this, or I got this counter app on from the App Store, and I had one counter for when she hit, one for when she missed, and we just went through and said, right, let's record down your percentages, and then let's go day by day and see if we can beat those and get you up to a certain level, sort of 65-70% consistency on your serve or more. The point there is, as she was hitting a serve, I hit a few returns back, and those Wilson Trinities and the Vermonts, thicker rubber, they're hard. And I'll tell you what, when I hit that with this thing, it was like I was playing with a cricket bat. It had no forgiveness at all, and I could feel it in my forearm. It did not feel nice one bit. So there's the thing. This string does not have feel or ball pocketing or comfort. And for those of you screaming out, it's a poly, it's stiff, absolutely 100%. And I can't get the stats for it, but this is a stiff string. That said, there are polys out there, not even the soft ones necessarily, which are perfectly playable. Yes, you've got to have some good timing. No, you can't take it late or sort of be pulling the ball at all, because you will get a sore arm. You will get tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, smash shoulder. It will happen. I do not believe this would be playable in a highly competitive situation where you're using new, hard, fast balls. If you are playing and you're a person who carries a tube of balls in your bag and you're playing with them for weeks on end, and they're, you know, I've hit with some people where the balls they're playing with, I'm like, how can you play tennis with that? It's almost like you can dish it in, you know. But I get it, you know, some people that it's like kids playing with the stage 2 and 3 balls. It's a bit slower, it's a bit easier. You know what? Actually, a string like this might not be the worst thing in the world because the comfort's coming from the squishy ball. So, what do I think? I think, and when I say what do I think, who is this meant for? Because this is not meant to be played full bed in a competitive scenario. You'd have to have an arm of steel to play with this, and a lack of a nervous system, so you didn't really care about feel. You know, you literally may as well go and swing a cricket bat. So who would like this? I think it has to be played in a hybrid. It has to be played with a softer, round polystring or a multi-filament, or even a synthetic gut. Probably, actually, I would argue you would probably pair this with a synthetic gut. Why? Because let's face it, yes, this was explosive and snappy. It did give spin. There are plenty of other polys you can go and buy that will do just as nice a job, that you can just full bed. Yeah, you're going to pay another 30, 40, 50 quid a reel for it, but it will just do the job and you don't have to worry about then discovering strings. This, I think, is meant for a person who's on a budget, is willing to do the research and the work to find a string that will pair well with it, that's probably equally as cheap. I imagine if you look at the MSV lineup, some people have mentioned there are some round, softer poly strings to go with it. you know, MSV may even recommend that to say, if you use this, put that. I did look on this strings page on the MSV website. They certainly didn't recommend a hybrid for it. So I would say a person on a budget who wants the power and the spin, but who will do the work to investigate and find an equally cheap cross string that will bring that softness and feel. It's the only way this would work. I'm going to go ahead and say it. There is no way you can play with this string in a full bed if you're playing any level of competitive tennis. Don't see how that works. So every string has a purpose. This one is the spin, the power, and the economy. And you're going to have to go out and find something to go with it to bring in your comfort, your feel, and your touch. So yeah, honestly, I can't wait to cut it out and put something else in. But interesting experience because as they say, you've got to try the rough with the smooth. So MSV Focus Hex Ultra, great power, great spin, great economy. I don't think there's a whole lot else to it, but with a hybrid would probably become an excellent choice for those on a budget.